What's up, team? This episode, we are wrapping up our nutrition series. So we're going to do an overview of everything we have discussed over the last few pods and then go through what happens now and what happens at the end of our nutrition workshop. So let's just rewind right back to the very beginning. So those first couple of weeks, all about setting the foundations and setting the sort of the ground rules of what we expected from our members for the next 6 or 7 weeks and obviously and beyond. So in that first one, we got everyone onto our in-body scanner, which looked at their fat, their muscle, their water and everything in between. And we did some waist measurements as well. The 3 commitments that we got everyone to first sort of work on was to track their step counts. It was going to be to start a food diary so that I had an understanding of where they were currently at with their nutrition and to begin posting foods into a group chat. Now, obviously, if you're listening to this and you're not part of a group chat, it might be that you just start taking photos anyway so that you can build your own awareness. But that first week was just to get the ball rolling, start to build some momentum. When we came in for our second catch-up, we had a look and a discussion around our wins over that first week. What things did we notice? We covered protein and why it is so important and why it is a big focus for us here at 365 Fitness. So again, a little reminder, we're looking at anywhere between 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And then we gave another 3 commitments. They started to sort of build some momentum. We added protein into every meal. A good rule of thumb was to go 30 grams of protein. 30 grams in each meal a day would take you to 90 grams. For most people, that would get them somewhere closer or better than where they currently were. Throwing in your snacks and bits and bobs in between, hopefully we can get ourselves into that range that we talked about. So remember, it was a range of 1.2 to 1.6 rather than a definitive number. And the reason for that is so that we had a target to work within rather than one sole number, because that is a pass or a fail. If you have a range to work to, it does not matter whether you're at the bottom of the range or the top of the range, you are in that range and you are in the goalposts, and that works. We wanted everyone to make sure that they were training a minimum of 3 times per week, whether that was in our strength training sessions, getting out for a walk, running, yoga, Pilates, whatever it was, but to do something at least 3 times per week. And then once they had tracked their step count, we were going to add anywhere between 10 and 20% more steps to their current total. Again, it's not a one size fits all. You must do 10,000 steps a day. It was just, let's add 10 to 20% more, because more is obviously going to take us on the road to a healthier version of ourselves. When we came back for the next one, I think I butchered the Stephen Bartlett podcast example where we talked about the rats in the maze, and we started looking at our habits and sort of where those bad habits came from and the triggers and everything involved in that, and how a lot of it is environment sort of centric and a lot of it is related down to our stress and our emotional state. And I think we'll all agree that when we're stressed, we tend to make worse decisions. We then got everyone to, again, repost their foods into the group chat, so to really keep that accountability level high. We encourage you to do 2 triggers. So try and realize what things are your triggers, because everyone has their own. And then to start adding a glass of water to every single meal. Again, it's just a little trick, little way of layering in something more positive. So a glass of water to every meal. We then had a real big discussion around our trigger scenarios. We discussed social occasions and banking calories. So again, that calorie banking is meaning if you had an event coming up on a Saturday, in the week building up to it, you might do an extra workout. You might consume slightly less calories on the 3 or 4 days prior, knowing that you would consume more over the weekend. And that way, then you wouldn't have that detrimental effect of over-consuming those calories as time went on. The commitments that we blocked in around our social occasions and our triggers was to make sure that we were always 2 weeks ahead of ourselves with our bookings. That is more specific to us here at 365, is our schedule opens 2 weeks in advance, and we encourage you to be booked in for all your sessions at least 2 weeks in advance, just because it's like an appointment. If you're booking it, you're more likely to turn up. It comes up on your calendar, you block the time out, and you are more likely to attend rather than just leaving it to chance. We were looking to make sure that your food shops were pre-planned and mapped out. Again, with a view of being organised and knowing what's coming up in the week ahead. And then we wanted to add 2 additional colours to every single meal, or add as much variety as you could. Again, from a nutrient standpoint, it's quite amazing when you start to take photos of your food. You'll realise quite how bland your meals can be. So adding a little bit of colour is only going to be a good thing. We then had a big old discussion. I think I really waffled in this episode, where we talked all around alcohol and I guess sort of the effects of alcohol on our body and on our health, specifically, I guess, from a fitness enthusiast perspective, and what we could be doing to try and still implement alcohol into our lives, because at the end of the day, it's a massive part of our culture. But as a a way that we can sort of navigate alcohol rather than completely remove it and then end up binging, sort of keep doing what we have been doing that obviously hasn't taken us the right way. So the big chat on alcohol. Alongside that, we put in an hour of no screen time before bed, batch cooking a high protein meal to go in your freezer for emergencies or for those post occasions, and then to go away and read or listen to Atomic Habits. I really enjoyed that podcast episode around Atomic Habits. So if you haven't done already, go and listen to that one, or go and read or listen to James Clear Atomic Habits book. That takes us to the last episode, which we covered all things atomic habits and identity-based goal setting. In that identity-based goal setting, it's looking at what the person we are desiring to be would do day in, day out. What processes, what things do they put in place each day to get them their desired outcome? Again, we touched on if they wanted to drop a dress size, what would the person that has dropped that dress size be doing day in, day out compared to what we are doing right now? And then we can start to get ourselves on the road to that. We retrack step counts to make sure that that was still improving. We planned an additional activity or meal to go around our social occasions. We're building up, as of this episode, we're building up to Christmas now. So making sure that we are on top of our exercise and our nutrition. And then to all collaborate and send in your biggest takeaways from the Atomic Habits book. That is an awful lot that I have just read off that we went through in those 6 weeks. What I'll aim to do is create a list of all those different commitments. If we can tick the box with even half of those, I can guarantee that you'll be in a better state with your health if you can do that. What we then do, we come to wrap up our nutrition courses, is we'll do a Q&A. And like I said, if you've got any questions, let's fire them away and I can answer those in a future episode. And then we revisit the in-body and our waist measurements. So we're trying to see what that progress has been. Now, if you don't already know, we are not advocates for getting onto the SAD step or the scales, as we know that doesn't tell us the full picture of what has happened inside our bodies. The majority of our members' scale weight might not necessarily change. What does change is that their muscle mass will increase and their body fat mass will decrease. Therefore, if you were looking at a scale, the scale would stay the same. However, our composition, what our body is made up, has changed an awful lot. So we do our in-body results and we do our waist measurements. A lot of the time, the waist measurement, it comes down to the fact that we're less bloated, we're less stressed, we've got less cortisol running through the body, so our waist isn't going to be quite as big. And I think we had one of our members, I think, dropped over 10 centimeters from her waist in our most recent block, which is absolutely incredible. We get everyone to go through their biggest takeaways, their biggest wins, and what they deem they will continue with in the long run. And then we book in a 12-week catch-up. That is super important because our ethos is that we are setting people up for the next 6 months and 6 years rather than just 6 weeks. We always will have that follow-up in the future just so we can check in with people. How have they been getting on? Life happens, things get in the way. It's never going to be perfect. However, if we've managed to stick to just a few of the things that we've discussed over these last few episodes, I would like to think that we're going to be in a far better position than where we are now. Now, the beauty of us doing this series of episodes is that this is now here forever. So if you've done a 6-week course, you can revisit it this way. Or if you're actually thinking, I'd really like to get involved in that, and you are a member or you're local to 365, our next one will be in January, where we'll do this as a cohort, as a group, and we'll go through it again. So if it's something that you think you'll benefit from, you just need to send me a message, or you can send an email to info@365fitness.com. And we can get you on the road to working on your nutrition, working on your habits and behaviors, and ultimately giving you more energy, making you feel happier, making you probably feel a bit fitter and more body confident. Hopefully, you have found all of this information useful and not too overwhelming. Please let me know in the comments how you have all found it. I've enjoyed doing a series like this, so let me know what you want to see next.